Welcome to the Healthy Living Up to Me, Fidelity Training for Leaders. On behalf of the Nevada Quality and Technical Assistance Center, we thank you for taking time to learn more about Fidelity as a leader in the state of Nevada. My name is Dawn Gensch, and we are really pleased that Dr. Susan Harris and Luann Steininger, T-trainers in the state of Nevada, are here to share with you about Fidelity. So thank you.
Hi, this is Sue Harris.
And hi, I'm Luann.
Hi, we're so happy to be here with you today to share this important information. The workshop that you're leading is a result of over 30 years of evidence-based research in which we know that this program will indeed change lives. If you notice on our photo here, in the background we have our charts. This was taken during a workshop, and I'm Sue. I'm the one on the left-hand side, and Luann has her name tag on as well, and she's on the right.
Well, because we're here for Fidelity, let's talk about Fidelity. One of the reasons why this program is so successful worldwide is because there's consistency in the delivery of the program in multiple languages, in multiple countries, but especially right here in Nevada, which is what we're hoping to get all of us on board for success. And so at the organizational level, it's how the people who deliver the program put it all together so that when you as leaders go into the program, you actually have been trained, you know what to do, and you can follow the guidelines that you were taught under, and it gets delivered in the same manner all over the state of Nevada. Keep in mind that it is the organization that holds the license. And so that's really what we're talking about with Fidelity. Now, the reason we want to have Fidelity in the program is because we want you to be successful as the leader. And we want to be able to give you the tools that you need so that you know how to go find the answers to the questions you may have. And so it's really a very comprehensive vision of Fidelity, that it happens from the moment you're trained. It's the planning that happens prior to the workshop. It's the delivery of the workshop in the manner that you were trained. And then there's those components that always take completion after the workshop ends. And the organizations who hold the license are the ones that are ultimately responsible for the fidelity of the program. And the reason why it's important to have Fidelity in all of our programs and all of us be on the same page is because we want to have the same kind of outcomes. And because this is an evidence-based program with over 30 years of research, if delivered in the manner that it's lined out, the outcomes are predictable. And with our state facing the kind of resources that we want to put to good use, it's really important to have those outcomes and those allocations of resources and to have the accountability and the proof that the program works. So those are all some of the reasons why it's very important for Fidelity in the program. And I'll let Sue tell you a little bit about this part.
Okay, so one of the most powerful and wonderful source of resources for program Fidelity is to go straight to Stanford School of Medicine's patient education website. We have the URL here for you. You can click on this at any time, and it will take you to their web page. Here you see on this slide Stanford's web page. So when we look at this, there's a lot of information here. We really encourage you to get to know this website really well. Almost any question you can come up with can be answered by using this website. So when we look at the left-hand side of this page, under Patient Education, we see where it has the home, meet our staff, training, licensing, materials. Do you see that on the left-hand side there? Well, of particular interest for this webinar is the licensing section. And with this licensing section, you can learn all about what it takes to be a licensed program, but also what the requirements are for a licensed organization. Now, if you look at the right-hand side of this website, you'll see that there's all kinds of resources ready and available to you, no password required. There's the 2012 Living a Healthy Life with Chronic Conditions, 4th edition. link. So if you were to need books, there's the Leaders Manuals. There's, all kinds of resources. If you just click on those and explore a little and learn what's available on that website, you will have such a wonderful resource available to you. Now, when we go forward and we look at why is licensing so important, as a leader, you are required to have a valid copy of the organization's signed licensing agreement in the front of your leader's manual before you facilitate any workshop. So this license is going to be directly from the organization that's sponsoring the workshop you're co-facilitating. So it's possible as a leader that you can actually co-facilitate workshops for different organizations that have different licenses. So just keep in mind, whenever you're out there going to do a workshop, you have the license of the organization that you are doing the workshop for in your book. So remember, the organization is the entity that holds the license with Stanford, not the individual. Licenses are always held by an organization. And you can get all kinds of information about that if you should be curious on that website we just showed you with licensing information from Stanford. So when we look at this website here at Stanford, we can see that the licensing fee, sample licenses, et cetera, down here on the left-hand side. There's just so much information. You as a leader, you don't really need to know all of this information. It's there if you're curious. You just need to make sure you have that license in your leader's manual when you go to do your workshop. Now over here on the right-hand side, you see where there's the training information, the implementation manual, the Fidelity Manual, the Fidelity Toolkit, and then the Leader and Trainer Certification Guidelines. All of these here you want to become exceptionally familiar with. You may already have copies of these, you may not. These are free and open to the public, and we welcome you to download them and have a copy handy. Put your own little notes in there if you'd like, because these are going to be critical for you as a lay leader to be successful. And remember, all of these different resources speaking to Fidelity really ties into the fact that what you're doing, there is a legality to it, and there is a liability to it. So this program is evidence-based, it's very scripted, as you know from your training, and fidelity is critical.
All right, well, let's review the levels of training, because this is a multi-layered level. So Sue and I, as you may know, are T-trainers, and what that really simply means is that we are the trainer of trainers. We were trained at Stanford, and as a T-trainer, we can train master trainers, and master trainers then can train lay leaders, but we can also train lay leaders. And as T-trainers, we can also facilitate workshops. And I have to say, that's Sue and I's favorite place to be of all the training. It's all good, but we especially enjoy being in the workshops with people. And then master trainers can then train leaders, and they can also facilitate workshops. And then, as you can see on the screen here, the lay leaders facilitate the 6-week workshops. And I have to say, the real impact of this program happens at the workshop level. It's the place where we need the most leaders. We don't need as many T-trainers as we need lay leaders. And we're always looking for men. So, you know, the goal for Stanford and most of us is to have 1/3 of our leaders be men. So once you're trained, it's no guarantee that you retain that status, because it makes sense that if you've been trained and you don't do the actual program, you really can't keep your skills sharp, and you can't really learn and grow in the program. So we're going to review a few places where you can see what's required to maintain your level, whether you're a T-trainer or whether you're a leader. And so just to review things we've said already, the organization, as Sue mentioned, holds the license, and they are responsible to approve and recruit and organize the leaders who are going to do the workshops. They also make sure that you, the leader, have a copy of the license for each program and for each leader in the front of your book. The organization with the license also has to report to Stanford annually, how many workshops, things like that. That's part of their legality that Sue also mentioned. And then the organization is really ultimately responsible for the fidelity, but you as the leader need to know exactly what's required so that you can be successful in your program. So I'll actually let Sue talk to you a little bit about some more tools that you have in your toolbox for the fidelity.
Okay, so here on the screen you see we have another link here for you, another URL, which takes you to the Fidelity Manual that is available on the Stanford website. I showed you a little bit earlier where you could find this. Now, the most current one that Stanford has at this moment is the 2012, the Program Fidelity Manual with the 2012 update, which all of you should have been trained on by now. If you have not been trained on the 2012 update, please see the organization that you're doing facilitations with, because you need to have that training before you can lead any more workshops. Keep in mind that updates do occur. This is a dynamic program, and so you always want to look for the date of the update and make sure that you have the most current information and the most current manuals. So when we look at this Program Fidelity Manual of the 2012 update, we see in the table of contents a variety of different topics are covered. So even the basics, such as how do you even use this manual, it's all right there laid out for you. And we invite you to really check out that section on page 6 on what are the beliefs underlying all Stanford programs, because this is the heart and soul of the programs and how they're delivered, and the perspective of dignity and the expertness of each of our participants in a workshop of being the best self-managers for their self, really respecting the individual that's come to the workshop. So as you look down this table of contents, you can see in section 2 that there's a lot of different types of fidelity, and this manual goes into the must-dos, the things that absolutely have to happen, and then some of the things that are the nice-to-dos. So we encourage you to familiarize yourself with both of those. We recognize that not all the time the nice-to-dos can be done, depending on resources, but the must-dos are critical, and they tie directly to the fidelity of the program. So when we look at the Fidelity Toolkit, which is another fabulous publication that's on this patient education website with Stanford, we see that I believe this is 2010, Stanford Self-Management Fidelity Toolkit. Yes, that's May 2010. And when we look at the table of contents, we see a lot of really great topics here that can also help us to be very successful leaders and to follow the fidelity of the program. We'd just like to point out a couple things that maybe you haven't had a chance to look at yet, but we find to be very helpful tools. On page 10, the interview role plays, these are fabulous. They give you an opportunity to try on different roles and work with how you would facilitate a workshop with different types of participants in there that can create challenging situations for you to problem solve. And then we also have, would like to point out, the certification for leader. How does that work? What goes on with that? And how do we become certified? And that's on page 20. And actually, Luann's going to take a moment here to go over that a little bit with you.
So what you may have noticed up to now is that there's a lot of really good resources for you to learn about fidelity. But I want to point out there's no additional training for fidelity. If you offer the workshop as trained in the exact order and all the things you know from being a trained leader, then you're within the fidelity in the workshop. These are really things to know outside of the actual workshop, 6-week workshop. So it's what you do before, what you do after. As long as you're following the script and doing it in the way you were trained, then you're the Stanford one that delivered. So these tools are really handy. So just kind of, this is a checklist. As a trained leader, did you attend all 4 days of training? Was it facilitated by 2 master trainers? Did you actually do your practice teaches? And even before you became a leader, were you screened, and were you were you clear about what you were being asked to being trained in? So this is really a nice bird's eye view, and you can just walk it through. If the answer to one question is yes, you go down. If you keep going, you can go to the right. And this slide in the bottom right-hand corner gives you a bird's eye view and an overview of the whole slides. But as I mentioned earlier, if you're not doing workshops, then you're losing the skills and you'll forget a lot of what you had learned. So it's really important as you're trained to do, it says at the top of this page, within 6 months. Sue and I strongly recommend that you do it within 3 months of your training, because as you know, if you do it and then you don't pick up any of the materials for 3 months, it's really hard to remember what you did. Sooner is better. It's almost a good idea to do it within a month if you can get that organized before you even do your leader training. And then as a leader, if you don't do a workshop at least once a year, obviously you'd have to go back and be retrained. But if you do all of that and you follow this, then you end up being active and you're having fun and you're making an impact on people's lives, and you're contributing to the health of the state of Nevada.
Okay, so up to now we've kind of looked at the resources on the Stanford website, and those are the key resources to give you tools to see from a Stanford perspective. These are the mandatory types of issues to consider for Fidelity. Now we're going to go to the state of Nevada's Fidelity Manual, and on your screen you see it's the Healthy Living Up to Me Manual. It is on the website that's supported by the QTAC, and this manual actually was compiled by Luann and myself, and it's based on the Stanford University Fidelity Manual and Implementation Manual, but it exceeds some of the requirements because there are certain things that the state of Nevada would like to do that they want to make sure that we're all able to work together and have the same structure. So here we have the Healthy Living Up to Me 2013 Quality Assurance and Program Fidelity Manual. So when we look at this, we see that there's an overview of the table of contents, there's a description of the manual, the purpose, and how to use. So if you're doing any trainings within the state of Nevada, and if you're doing it especially under the QTAC's license, this is the manual you need to follow. So when we look at this, we see in the table of contents, you can self-manage and go through and read this. I'm sure you've probably referred to this several times by now as a leader, but we just want to point out a few sections where we have our little sunshines next to them. In section 6, during workshops, there are some things you can do, and we've provided those in this manual, where you can do a couple checklists and kind of help each other out in seeing how did it go during the workshop. We have some information specifically for leader and master trainer retention. That's particularly helpful. And then opportunities for Fidelities after the workshops. Those areas are really important to look at. And the checklists we provided are just for an easy way to kind of go through the key elements of your session of a workshop, and we'll go over those in a little bit more detail. What we really want you to keep in mind, though, and something that is so critical, we cannot emphasize it enough, is that when you are recruiting for a workshop, staying within the Fidelity guidelines, you need to have at least a minimum, no less than 10 people enrolled in your workshop. So what Luann and I find in recruiting for workshops is that we actually recruit up to 22 people for a workshop, knowing that even with 22 people registered for the workshop, it's more than likely we'll probably have somewhere between 12 and 14 people actually show up the first day. So looking at the manual and keeping in mind the bare minimums, and then over recruiting, if you will, for workshops is a really helpful strategy.
It is. And so inside your manual are pages that look like this, which are just really reminders, and there's that blue arrow on the right Sue just mentioned. An ideal size group would be never less than 10 people, but you have to recruit more than that because life happens and people have things come up and they forget that they signed up. And just a couple of little tips from us. We always make phone calls. Sue and I split our list of participants, and we each call half the list of participants to remind them that they signed up, to remind them of when and where we meet, and to ask if they have any questions. Then when they come in the first day, they've talked to one of us, so it just makes it a little more comfortable for them to walk into something they've signed themselves up for that they really don't know what they've signed up for. And if you have someone in your office who's making those phone calls, that could be the case if that's the organization structure to do that. But Sue and I find if the facilitators call, it's really a nice personal. And then ask people to come early on the first day just because they may not know where to park and how to get to the room. And so you give them that information, but also just get them to get their name tag. Those are just little things that we found make a difference. If in talking to someone on the phone you find that they cannot, you want to ask them, are you aware that this is a 6-week program? And someone says something like, oh, I'm going to be on a cruise for 3 weeks. One way to suggest they not take the program is, it's important because this program bills each week. You might want to take this at another time, and then if that's the case, have that information available. So let's see, here we are, and this is a checklist form. It's a valuable tool for you as leaders to use at the end of each workshop day with your co-facilitator. Just review this to see, did we do all of this? This is your own checklist. You're your own Fidelity. And you can, as partners and co-facilitators, you can be open to having constructive feedback. If you left something out, that's a good place to learn. It's how you learn. So be easy on yourself the first time you teach, and know that you're going to make a few mistakes. And as long as you're following the format and you caught yourself doing it, and your partner, and you caught yourself doing it, and you know how to fix it on the next time, then you're on board.
And I'd just like to add to that, Luann and I have been doing this, as we mentioned earlier, since 2006. And to this day, after every training we do, no matter what type of training it is, if we're training master trainers, leaders, or if we're facilitating a workshop, every time we do this, we stop and we schedule at least an hour after each session to be available so we can talk to each other and go over what went really well, what do we think we might want to improve on. And we use these checklists.
We do.
And each time we find we learn something new.
Yep. Even these many years later, it's just such a great, wonderful tool to stay on track, to stay within Fidelity, and to learn. So here's just some guidelines as we close out the workshop to remind you when you're scheduled. You're going to want to contact QTAC for the marketing. You want to do that workshop, as we mentioned, within 3 to 6 months. If it's been more than 12 months, you must be retrained. Have some kind of a plan. If one of your leaders, something happens in an emergency, they can't be there, who can you call as a backup? And of course, always know who to call and what to do in an emergency. You've got some paperwork to sign, and that's all with QTAC. And then this manual that Sue just walked you through is really your best resource. It's a well-done manual, and the website is terrific. And just review all those materials. I know it all seems overwhelming, but if you get one workshop under your belt, you just gain confidence and skills and being able to step into the next one, and each time it just gets more and more fun. And as you know, you're your own self-manager. You've got skills in problem solving, and you know where to go if you need some questions answered, the website, the books, and then you've always got your organization. Remain open. Keep yourself open to learning and growing, and follow the manual exactly as you were trained, and have fun and stretch yourself. I think that's really the most important thing we wanted to leave with you. So we want to thank you all for coming, and for Dawn. Thank you, Dawn, for your wonderful assistance in this and your partnership. So thank you.
Thank you, and we hope that not only has this been helpful, but that from participating in this, that you are that you are enjoying being a leader and knowing that what you're doing is so important, and we're so happy that you're part of our team. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Susan and Luann. That was very helpful. I hope the leaders who watch this webinar recognize that the information that they've just been able to listen to and see the corresponding details has added clarity for them so that they can definitely be successful. So again, thank you. We thank our presenters, Dr. Susan Harris and Luann Steininger, for giving us this important information about Fidelity of the Stanford University Chronic Disease and Diabetes Self-Management Workshops, as well as the other programs offered through Stanford University. We would be remiss if we did not mention the Sanford Center for Aging. This is where Dr. Susan Harris works, and both Susan and Luann are affiliated with. The Nevada Quality and Technical Assistance Center has been pleased to partner with the Sanford Center for Aging for this Fidelity webinar and other activities of QTAC in Nevada. As you can see from the screen before you, Sanford Center for Aging, utilizing the link at the bottom of the screen, directs you to the information that they have online about disease self-management programs, such as those from Stanford University, which this Fidelity webinar is focused on. When you go to the nvhealthyliving.org website, which is specific for the Healthy Living Up to Me system that the Quality and Technical Assistance Center helps to coordinate, you will find information about workshops across the entire state of Nevada. And as a leader, we welcome you to keep us informed of the workshops that you are co-facilitating so that providers and other care team members or other organizations who might refer patients or their clients to these workshops can gain accurate and current information about those workshops. And again, we welcome you as leaders who are co-facilitating workshops in the state of Nevada, who are under the Nevada Quality and Technical Assistance Center or QTAC license, to keep us informed of what you're doing. Let us know if there is any additional technical support or training that you might need. So please direct any comments or questions to us so that we can support you. If you are a lay leader in the state of Nevada who's not facilitating workshops under a license, you are more than welcome to partner with us too. And we hope that you will use this Fidelity webinar, the Fidelity Manual, both for Healthy Living Up to Me as well as Stanford University, to make sure that you are successful in the work that you are doing as a leader of these self-management programs.